This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 95, where we're talking about Iron Fist, Season 1, Episode 6, Immortal Emerges From Cave. Welcome back to Defenders TV Podcast, episode 95, where we're talking about Iron Fist, Season 1, Episode 6, Immortal Emerges From Cave. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
I'm your other host, Chris.
And I'm John, rounding out the group as the third and final host.
Welcome back, gentlemen. 6 episodes into Season 1 of Iron Fist.
Absolutely. Who's Scythe? Who is the bride of the 9 spiders? And who is two becomes one? Quote, Spice Girls. Late 1990s.
Yeah. I love it. Yes, the Spice Girls do become one.
Yeah.
It did go through my head.
Absolutely. Yes, they do, with the Vishnikov brothers.
Yes.
I'll be Scythe. There you go.
I don't know whether they were thinking of the Spice Girls when they came up with that for themselves, but in case you couldn't guess, this is our spoiler-filled discussion of Episode 6 of Season 1 of Iron Fist. So we will be discussing full spoilers of the episode. Head off, watch the episode, pop on back to us, and then obviously share your thoughts with us about the episode. Just pop onto our website, defenderstvpodcast.com, record your thoughts about the episode, and we'll pop them into an episode in the future. If you also want to send us feedback, you can email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com.
And of course, as always, you can find us on iTunes over at defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes, or you can search any other good or evil podcast catcher. Just search Defenders TV Podcast. Please subscribe and or leave a review, and that would be absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. Our episodes come out on Friday and Tuesdays each week, so obviously this is Friday today. Our episode 7 review will be out on Tuesday the 4th of April, so please make sure you subscribe so you can pick up each of our reviews of each of the episodes of Iron Fist. Gentlemen, take us time to get into our discussion about this episode.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. This is a big one.
Yes, it is. This episode was written by Dwayne Worrell. This is his first big writing credit. He's a staff writer on all of the season of Iron Fist, so it means he's in the writer's room with all the rest of the writers, but this particular episode was credited directly with him. So quite cool. Welcome on board, Dwayne. This is a pretty good episode to get as your first one, isn't it?
And he kind of, to be fair, knocked it slightly out of the park for this one.
Uh-huh.
I'm quite proud to say that you would think coming kind of midpoint, quite a poignant episode, probably the fear would be there somewhat in terms of, oh God, I've got to write this. But for what he did, I'm quite proud.
Yeah.
I feel like a father. I'm like, yeah, well done, son. Well done.
Absolutely.
So now go kick the ball some more in the Defenders and come back to us.
Absolutely. I feel like a mother. Dwayne, you did a great episode.
After 95 episodes of Defenders TV Podcast, I do feel like we have a little bit of ownership over some of the new writers that come up through the Defenders shows. It does feel like they are part of a family that we're involved in, doesn't it?
Yeah, Walzer's great. And I mean, Dwayne Walzer then links us in quite nicely to the director, who's RZA.
That's right, yes. This episode was directed by the rapper RZA. He's probably best known as a rapper. I normally give a little bit of spiel about what they've done before, but I'm going to leave it to John Tara Higley from our Facebook group over on facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast, because he described this so much better than I did. He says, RZA is mostly known as a rap icon, as one of the founders of the Wu-Tang Clan. Method Man, of the same group, made a cameo in Luke Cage. In short, RZA was a nerdy kid in a bad part of New York City who was obsessed with comics and kung fu movies and got famous for a rap group with a ton of kung fu imagery in their lyrics and name. More recently, he directed a kung fu flick, The Man with the Iron Fists, and now episode 6 of Iron Fist. Kind of awesome for someone's dreams to come through in that way. Couldn't have really said it better, John Tara. Thank you so much for that one. Yeah, like RZA is well known as being a huge fan and a huge influence on the fact that that band is based around kung fu imagery and kung fu movies from the 70s. He's definitely a comic book fan, so really cool, and I think his stamp is all over this episode. We will definitely talk about it as we go through our podcast about the episode, but this is probably the most stylistic of, I think, all of the Defenders shows so far in terms of what he was trying to bring into the show.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely awesome that he's done He's done this, and I actually think it's the episode with the strongest identity of Iron Fist. Now, yeah, okay, it could be down to the nature of the hand meeting the Immortal Iron Fist, obviously, but I think just in terms of, what he was trying to do with the camera work, the settings, just the whole storyline. I think that RZA and Wazza have done really, really well here.
Yeah, from my side, there was an element of almost, I think the film was called Ghost. Was it Ghost Dog?
Ghost Dog, yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me very much of that in terms of, as kind of John said, the camera work, but more the action scenes. And we'll obviously get into the rounds later in the fight, but particularly the choreography and the camera work during the scaffolding section. For me, that kind of screamed very martial art movie, but it was slightly different in that there was a part where the scythe was trapped on one of the sides were trapped on the beam, but the camera was just slightly to the left. So a typical director would have probably put himself behind one of the guys. But in this, it decided to actually have almost parallel to the fighters and just slightly off. So you could see both fighters, but you could also see what was between them and the way that was captured. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And there was also some kind of scenes from a directorial point where the doorway at the end, it was just like almost scenes from Incredible Hulk. Where like Bruce Banner, or wasn't even Bruce Banner back then. What was it?
David Banner, because Bruce sounded too gay for the 70s, apparently.
Well, it is a crazy name. But when he would just always walk off and the music would start playing, the
Lonely Mountain.
I was expecting that to kind of kick in as the credits rolled. I was like, well, okay, look, I'm giving this one to him. It was a good one.
Well, before the credits rolled, we did get an entire episode. John, do you want to tell us what Dwayne Worrell and the RZA gave us in your synopsis for this episode?
Sure. In 3 separate locations across New York, 3 mysterious fighters prepare for a challenge. The time has come. At Rand Enterprises, the pressures of work, his father, his addiction, and monastery boy begin to tell on Ward Meacham. A message left by the Hand for Danny in a round shipping container as him and Ward search for Radovan's daughter escalates Ward's drug addiction to the shock of his sister Joy and sets Danny on a course of action. The time has come. 3 challengers, the Vesnikov brothers, the Bride of the 9 Spiders, and Scythe, have been called for a grand duel by the Hand with the Immortal Iron Fist. Madame Gao and Danny agree their terms. If Danny wins, the Hand must leave Rand Enterprises and release Radovan's daughter, Sabrina. If Danny loses, he must leave the Hand alone and interfere no longer in their affairs. As the duels begin, Danny is aided by memories of his mentor from Kunlun, Li Kung. But as he is close to victory, Gao threatens to kill Sabrina until he stands down from killing the 3rd and final challenger. In doing so, Gao releases Sabrina, but also reveals her knowledge of Kunlun and Danny's father, Wendell Rand, before showing Danny a glimpse of her own power. However, Danny's efforts may all be for naught as Radovan's condition worsens and his urgent trip to hospital does not go as planned. Now, I know there are actually 4 challengers, but as I say, they're brothers, so I just class them as 3.
I like that. The twins who are one. Yes, they are. There are, one challenger, I suppose. Yes, interesting stuff in this episode. As I mentioned earlier on, it does feel stylistically like something set apart from the other episodes. It felt to me, if they ever wanted to commission a Kill Bill TV series for Netflix, the RZA is the right person to direct that and set up the kind of fights that the Bride has throughout Kill Bill Volume 1.
Well, absolutely. You've mentioned about Kill Bill, and certainly it was streets ahead of Street Fighter.
Yes, it was. Absolutely. I think it's time to get into our top 5 points, gentlemen. So our first point, Danny and Ward get ahead.
But a clank.
I had to, really, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah, you did.
I absolutely love Ward Meacham in this episode. I love how interesting this character is getting the more the series is going on. I think I spoke about in episode 3 his reaction takes to Danny and his father having a conversation were some of the best moments that Ward had so far. But this idea of these two going on a road trip in Danny's awesome Aston Martin to try and find the daughter of Radovan, going to location after location, him getting more and more annoyed at Danny because he still thinks this is a total waste of his time, and he needs to get Danny back to a big business meeting, which Danny doesn't care at all about. Love the relationship between these two. It really felt like a cool, fun road movie. And then they come upon the head of the murdered guard that Gao has left as Danny's introduction to the Grand Jewel. Really, really cool, and love how this has such a significant effect on Ward as well. He is now destroyed as a person afterwards after seeing something that, a guy in a, whatever it is, 30-story building way above the city of New York never expects to see in his normal day. Really love Ward in this episode.
Definitely. I think, is it Thomas Pelfroy is doing a really good job of Ward. I love his disintegration in this with the pills. I mean, his acting and makeup. I mean, when he was sat round the crisis management table at Rand Enterprises, just his whole look was fantastic. His whole twitchiness that he brought to the table was great. And I mean, just that whole descent into his pill popping and his need for something to calm him down. I mean, in fairness to him, he has just seen a head on a spike.
Absolutely.
And I mean, his reaction in that warehouse is really good as well. He's doing a great job of actually just bringing the weaknesses of Ward Meacham. He was so arrogant at the start, and all of a sudden these little weaknesses to his character are being drawn out, from the middle finger around the office through to the eye rolling when Danny and his father are talking, and now this, where Thomas Pelfrey does a great job acting as someone who really needs drugs and medication to get his legal high. And the hand being slammed in the door, oh my god, like that was just, I mean, I just crunched up, I pulled away. I like the makeup. They really went to town with the swelling of his hands. It reminded me of Homer Simpson's fat fingers, where he couldn't dial the phone.
Yeah, for me, I think we spoke about it previously in the last episode, the descent of Ward, and I'm wondering where this character has to go. As in terms of, this felt, he went from zero to, okay, we talked about him showing signs of cracking already, etc. But he very much in this episode went from zero to broken.
Definitely.
Yeah, he literally just went from zero to broken, and I was like, "Oh, wow, okay, he's even hallucinating now." Okay, I think they could have extended this a bit further, maybe over 2 episodes.
Okay,
but I'm interested to see where they're going to take it. Actually, interestingly though, we had no Howard in this.
Yeah, Harold's been strangely absent.
Yeah, I found that interesting in that part towards the beginning, where before they go out on their road trip, Danny's telling Ward about what he's found in the warehouse, etc. And Ward's just playing them off. Oh, you our father's silly beliefs. You think at this point he would have brought in Harold to discuss this kind of more, or to kind of go, well, look, I need you to control this kid that you've now bring in. But like I said, it's just, he went from 0 to 60 or to 100 in very short amount of time. Now, saying that, the acting was superb, and I think, as John said, the makeup looked fantastic as he was starting to have this break, and then when he smashed his hand just to get those painkillers, I thought it was fantastic. What we did see, which I liked, was Ward started getting crazy when the door flung open, and you see when they got the head.
Yep.
Ward started breaking, literally going, oh my god, you call 9, well, we can't do no. But Danny's steeled. Now, obviously, we see Danny start to unsteel as the episode progresses. But it was that, what I liked was the dichotomy of the two of them there.
Yeah. It was almost like Danny going, you're now in my environment, And Ward does not know how to handle this at all. Danny does.
Absolutely. Yeah. Although is also one of two that says we need to call the police in this episode. I think just coming back to what Chris said, I mean, it can only get worse for Ward Meacham. That's how I'm seeing it, because it's still got to come out in the wash that he knows about his dad to Joy. I mean, that has bound to come out. That's just going to make things even more crazy for him and Joy, and that's going to really put more pressure on him. And I think, like, we did get a glimpse of him, you know, looking at the sample of heroin in his drawer and all the jars of pills, whatever he was taking, the kind of, you know, anti-anxiety pills. We caught a glimpse of that previously, but I think it's just going to get worse for him.
Mm-hmm. And can I just say, I feel so sorry for poor Megan, the PA. Is she right in the centre of Danny and Ward and Joy's offices? Because she just seems to get shouted at by each of them to come into their office and then dismissed almost immediately after getting into the room. I just felt so sorry for her. I felt she's really put upon in this office.
Yeah, hopefully she's well paid.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I did even. I felt, in theory, you're a personal assistant for a CCO and a CEO, and now an additional third CEO. So this is kind of like, I'm going,
can you triple my pay?
Yeah, I'm like, she should be like doubled, or there's something here. I'd be like, yeah, so our review time's coming up. I've had to deal with my boss cracking because the guy cleaners cleaned his bin. Yeah,
but think of other guy who keeps doing kung fu moves in his office, and I don't know whether he has a job or not. Yeah, no, really interesting. But yeah, I do feel quite sorry for poor Megan. Time to crack on with the next point, I think.
Absolutely, and of course, the head does leave a message from the hand. It's parts of the body speaking to one another, where we get the grand duel. And of course, like, the great thing here is we see this at the start before the opening credits, where we see these four people getting ready. The butchers that are the Vesnikov brothers, the entomologist who is the bride of the Nine Spiders. And then, of course, we get some karaoke-loving assassin and murderer joyfully going about his business to the tunes of Aha. Yeah. Excellent.
This had me toe-tapping straight away.
Yeah, it was excellent. I really, as well, the one thing I noticed, all the little containers seem to be on a bluey, purpley pillow, and purple is the colour of the steel serpent. So I'm wondering whether the master that Madame Gao refers to is the Steel Serpent, because actually it was one of the things I was thinking about as well. It's almost like Russian dolls, because Meacham has Madame Gao ultimately as a master. Madame Gao has got a master, and presumably the Steel Serpent also has a master with regards to Mother Crane.
Yeah,
but we don't know. So the big master, who will that be?
Well, yeah.
It is the giant hand in the hole. We've discussed this, gentlemen. I am not letting this theory go until they prove me otherwise.
Excellent.
I have at least, we have another 7 episodes of this series, and then potentially like 5 to 6 episodes in the Defenders. So I have a while now before they can prove me wrong.
Rumor is that it will be discussed very early on in Defenders. There you go. That's the rumor. So
it's Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver is a giant hand.
Yeah.
She suddenly starts morphing.
Wow. This theory is getting crazy. Let's get back to the episode, John.
I was just going to say, though, but it could be that she is actually Mother Crane, possibly. But yes, back to the episode before we lose the run of ourselves. So I think, round 1?
Mm-hmm. Fight with the Vesnikov brothers. Really interesting. These look like they're not comic book characters, we don't think.
No.
The twins. They're Russian twins. We don't think they're from the comic books. Don't seem to see any connection between the names and comic book characters.
No, and they're butchering up a bit of meat when we see them. And of course, maybe this is just a nice little nod to the Russian gang that was in season 1 of Daredevil, and to that whole sort of grouping, because they were involved with the the shipment of drugs and so on. Maybe these are the Hand loyalists.
Interesting.
I suppose they must be, ultimately. They are willing to, put themselves on the line for old Madame Gao.
Absolutely.
So, no direct reference from what I can see from the comic books. So into round one. So we see here the Vesnikov brothers bringing the implement of their choice for butchers, obviously knives here. I love the little ring of blood that's done here. And, we see Danny really starting to kind of just meditate on what he's doing here. And I found this quite good because actually, as it progresses through, it seems as though he builds the confidence in terms of his moves, in terms of his purpose, probably from the memories or the vision of his mentor. I really, really kind of enjoyed this fight. I mean, I think the nod we get here is, you must become a double-edged sword from Li Kung, the Thunderer, as he fights the two brothers. So, yeah, I thought this was a really good fight. I just also absolutely adore Madame Gao in this episode, and just having her watch over, it was almost like Roman Emperor kind of look, where she's just looking down on them. Fabulous.
Yeah, no, I actually like this fight a lot. More just that we can see, and I think I had in the last episode started talking about how Danny, who had just taken on a hallway of knife-wielding triad guys, got beaten up quite potentially. He got his ass handed to him a few times by a hand member in the lorry. So what we're seeing here is that, I think, Derek, you were right, and I'm tipping my hat to you. I think what you had said was that, yes, these hand members are probably more trained, more highly trained, and we see this in round one. So we assume that the brothers are not... They're round one. They're testing to kind of test the ground, test the water for Madame Gao. And what we do see in the very first few minutes, Danny's getting pummeled a bit.
Yeah. It's difficult to take on two people at the same time, but I'm glad they kept this little motif. We talked about it in I think episode 3, where Danny's taking on two combatants at the same time, and it is at the same time. It's something that you don't normally see when you have 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. It's usually, one person stands back and it's one at a time, and it becomes a lesson from the Thunderer to Danny that you have to fight on two sides at the same time or you're not going to win the battle. I love that they kept that as the piece here. But yeah, you're right. Probably unlikely that Danny was going to get beaten. It was only 20 minutes into the episode as well, so kind of thought that. But did anybody else think that there was going to be something mystical about the two of them when they said, "We are the two that are one," and then they cut their hands open? I thought they were going to put the hands together and then merge or something to be a bigger character.
Yeah, I thought it could have been some kind of variant on Fat Cobra from the comics, one of the immortal weapons, because we see another immortal weapon, obviously, and we'll come to that in round 2. And that they would kind of morph together or something. And I think even that they were talking about the circle of blood, and that, if you step outside of that, then you're forfeit. And I was wondering whether that was going to mean that something mystical would happen, that, I don't know, the part of the body that goes out of that circle would disintegrate or something, or vaporize or something like that. But it was just simply, this is the ring kind of thing. And you fight in. If you tap out, just like in any good old WWE wrestling match, you probably get a steel chair to the back of the head.
And that is how Danny wins. He knocks out one of them and the other brother taps out, who's still alive, but he does tap out, which I thought was quite interesting. Again, seemed very confident at the start until they realise that he does have powers. He's not just a skinny white kid from the Upper West Side in New York,
Absolutely, because I loved the baiting that they did as well, that they said the real Iron Fist would never leave his spot from the defense of Kunlun, like this whole, he is the defender of the holy city of Kunlun from the Hand, and this kind of prophecy that's running through it is that he should be at the gates of Kunlun defending it whilst it's on its cycle, its 15-year cycle, back round to Earth. So
don't forget my theory that someone's going to be coming after Danny for leaving Kunlun.
No, absolutely. So that was a real interesting little baiting that the brothers did. And, you know, there's still this question, why has he left Kunlun and come to New York? And he says he's got his own reasons for that. But he's still, with the exception of trying to find out about the plane crash and what's happened. But is there more to it than
Absolutely,
that, you know?
Absolutely. Chris, as our resident entomologist of the podcast, I suppose, our spider fan, do you want to take us on to round 2?
Yes. So with round 2, we get what we're believing is Bride of the Nine Spiders.
Yes, definitely.
So for our listeners who have not read the comics, and in particular, this comes in play with the Immortal Iron Fist run by Brubaker. The Bride of the Nine Spiders is one of the immortal weapons, similar to Iron Fist. She comes from one of the other heavenly cities. And she is, in the TV show, she just seems to be a entomologist with a penchant to venom and spider venom.
Yeah.
Where in the comics, she's literally made or ingests spiders and they burst free from her. John, do you want to, am I right here? Am I missing anything?
No, that's pretty much it. You know, she can take on the form of spiders, whether it's a big, massive, sort of 8-legged freak type spider, or whether it's millions of those little creepy ones that would just like consume you, take on those forms. And of course, poison, venom is her mastery.
What a great MCUing of this character then, that she is effectively taking poison venom from rare spiders to use as a weapon in her fights, you know? She doesn't have to be made of spiders. I just like the idea that she's obsessed with them and works in that industry and then uses it in her attacks or uses it in her assassin abilities.
Yeah, and I mean, it presents a new challenge for Danny as well, because he underestimates it to begin with. And I mean, you know, she's using a deadly charm. I love the little needles that she kept just flicking into him as he kind of stumbles past. And, you know, but it's a different, you know, it's a seduction. It's a different form of, it's a poisoner, you know, it's always that they do it much more silently because they have to get close in order to deliver the dart or the poison to their target. So I really like this. And again, like, you know, she throws up, although she goes from small acupuncture needles to a massive knife. So, I mean, you know, it's kind of like there's the sting in the tail. Right. She is actually as well a good martial artist. Like, is trained, and she was given a few kicks as well. I love that she brings the element that he's hiding as well, that Danny Rand is actually a mask, and we kind of, I got the sense of this as well from his memories of his mentor as well, that actually he is a living weapon. You know, the memory of his mentor is saying, you are a living weapon. And I just like the way the Bride of the Nine Spiders says, why hide behind the mask of Danny Rand? You know, you are the Immortal Iron Fist.
That was quite cool. Don't worry, listeners. We will get back to the memory of his mentor in a moment.
Yes.
Let's continue on with Bride of the Nine Spiders. I have to say, just quickly, I love that she kept throwing more and more of this poison into Danny. She reaches over at the start and puts one in the back of his neck without him noticing. And then he reaches out an arm, and there's someone in his arm. He reaches more out, another arm out. There's more in his other arm. She is just constantly lacing him full of what's potentially something that would kill a human very quickly, or would incapacitate a human very quickly. It does show, kind of, you know, subtly, that Danny is a very powerful human. I thought that was a really good touch, that she's not trusting the fact that she has given him enough venom. She just keeps giving him more and more and more throughout the fight to weaken him.
Yeah, and then on top of that, she's trying to kind of agitate him further and further to get his heart racing faster, so it pumps around his body faster, which I thought was fantastic. Just that she first tries getting him aroused, and then after the arousal fails, she starts then trying to zero in on his insecurities to a degree and anger him so that his heart starts pumping. He gets angry. That was the part that I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Am I upset that they didn't bring in a more mystical element to this? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. That we know of right now. She may be back. But I thought the way that they kind of the way that they played this, and the way that, okay, she actually understands that her skill is to inflict venom into them and then get them either aroused or angry or jumping around and active so that the venom takes effect quicker.
Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't played as the femme fatale. I'm glad it wasn't played as, I'm just a helpless woman.
Oh, absolutely.
That kind of way. I'm glad that it was something like, well, she's just trying to push him to get the poison through his system. That was really cool.
Yeah, but I loved how it was set up to make you think as though that's how it was going to play out, but then she ultimately showed her kick-ass.
Yeah.
But it would have been fantastic if she'd burst into billions of little spiders. That would have been fantastic, but I suspect that might be for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean, Chris. I'd love to have seen that. I think the other thing I really liked just at the end of this fight was, I think it was the first time with Madame Gao, where she says, "You're hurt, do you want to concede?" Like, she's just testing the water, just figuring out. And I kind of liked that with all of these three challenges and duels, was just Madame Gao watching, analysing, looking, and just kind of, the occasional bit of back chat to him just to maybe unnerve him. I thought that was excellent.
Absolutely. And to the point from earlier on, that the guidance that comes from the Thunderer on this one is that grief is weakness, banish it, after the bride is forcing him to relive this pain of losing his parents, And that's when Danny does that great move where he effectively powers himself up. The sparks are flying all around him. He's obviously pushing all the venom out of him in that one moment. And then he effectively knocks out the bride, gives her a kick, throws her to the floor, and then kicks her again as she comes attacking him with the blade. Really good. Only one little moment I didn't like about this. It was quite clear that Danny kicked her in her knife hand and she fell to the ground knocked out. Sorry, I do prefer when we do see the actual people fighting. Absolutely don't want to see anybody get hurt, obviously, on these TV shows. It did just take me out of the moment when I realised you can see it really quickly that it is absolutely not a kick to the face that knocked her out. He kicks her in the hand and she falls over and then stays down. She's quite a powerful character. I'd expect that she would be able to survive a kick to the hand.
Yeah, I didn't spot that. I thought that was definitely a kick to the old conch.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I saw this as well, and what I assumed it was a kick to the noggin and then to the hand.
Right. But
when I kind of did a slow-mo action replay, because you always have them at the end of fights.
Of course.
I was left similarly disheartened.
Uh-huh.
But to be fair, this was a 3-part action-orientated episode, and I was just really amazed that they actually showed a majority of punches and kicks that looked like potentially they had full-on connected.
Yeah.
But I was additionally also kind of like, well,
just that one
moment. Yeah, exactly.
But I think with that, on to round 3. And here we see Scythe, the aha singing murderer, take on me. And actually, you wouldn't want to take on him because you'd die.
Absolutely.
And you'd get killed, except if you are, of course, the Iron Fist. And I must say, I loved that when they meet for the first time, there's all the weapons racked up, and he goes, "Would you like to choose a weapon?" And Danny responds coolly, "I am the weapon." Like, that was fantastic.
Oh yeah, very cool.
But Scythe is actually the first real villain that Danny faced in the comic books. It's really, really early on.
Right.
One of the defenders here, but one of the other defenders over there, John, issue 16 of Marvel Premier featuring Iron Fist, which basically showed Scythe for the first time.
Woohoo!
And it is quite an interesting read.
Interesting.
Back in the day.
yeah, very cool. We'll definitely have to be reading that. Scythe feels like in a cool way, feels like cosplay in waiting. Like, this feels like the character that lots of comic book fans have probably been waiting to see on the show. Not that he's a huge character, not that he's a hugely well-known character. I mean, he is just that cool. His intro, the moment he's there singing and killing every single person that's in a karaoke bar, that's a cool intro for any character to get. And then for him to go up against the immortal Iron Fist at the end of the episode. Like, we do see Danny fully powered up. We see him with his fist fully cheed up, ready to destroy Scythe in this scene. Like, this is a great moment. Even if we never see the character Scythe again, I think he'll stand out as a great moment within the season of Iron Fist.
Definitely. I mean, I think, this is where we see him become or accept his purpose as the Immortal Iron Fist. Just the slowing of time for him, where he's able just to focus and block everything that Scythe is throwing at him. He punches Scythe with his Iron Fist and knocks him off his feet, across the room. So, that was a point we had made for episode 2 about him moving one of the psychiatric nurses out of the way whilst he was powered up with his glowing Iron Fist, and he obviously was not trying to push him across the entire corridor, because it just looks like a normal push, and we thought that there would be more power behind it, but here we get to see this for the first time, and I thought that was really, really cool, actually. But I think, again, the other thing here, the look on Madame Gao's face, and to me this was actually, is she ultimately getting confirmation here that this is the Immortal Iron Fist? Because then her actions afterwards, which are just fantastic, and I think that will be our next point, but it looks like Madame Gao has got confirmation. Like, there's this kind of like wide-eyed gaze and this kind of look that, okay, this person, Danny Rand, is the Iron Fist.
Absolutely.
And that will presumably get reported back to her master. So I kind of, I like that maybe, this wasn't what it appeared at first look, especially from Danny's point of view. 3 challenges. It's all about the honor, the duel, and all of this. Yeah. Whereas actually, maybe her later actions, it's that this is really just to confirm that he is the Iron Fist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and no, for me, this fight kind of embodied this episode greater. I talked in the beginning in terms of the directorial kind of look and feel to the episode, and how it reminded me of some of the more recent kung fu kind of martial arts based. Now, this is not a negative. I still have a soft spot for Under Siege with Steven Seagal. So help me, it is that bad. I still love that film.
Wow.
Under Siege 2, not so much, because a train, you could just pull the brakes.
Yeah.
I know, it's great on the train.
That's like Speed 1 and Speed 2. It was like, it's a bus. I know we'll make it even better. We make it bigger and we'll make it a boat.
Dear.
But anyway.
What's not to like about Steven Seagal on a train?
Well, it was more when he was Steven Seagal on a boat. And he had the knife, and that was brilliant.
As long as I'm not on either or have to watch either, I'm happy.
But I think it was more. I have a soft spot for these very, with these very action orientated scenes, and
like the raid, maybe, or something like that.
Exactly, the raid. Actually, the raid in particular is some of my favorite. And then there was District 13, which is a French-made parkour martial arts film, which is fantastic. But with this one, I thought it was quite good in terms of we got to see Danny Moore start to lose a bit of the control,
right,
and then gain it back, and then lose it again. So we talked about Danny and his PTSD at the beginning, and that seems to have almost dissipated. And now we're getting this crisis of conscience almost, in terms of who he is. And I think one of the lines is "Let your mother and father die or go." I'm paraphrasing, but for me, it was great in this episode. If they keep going to that, I'm like, just let his mother and father die. Yeah. But the fight was fantastic. I loved the ending. In particular, and John said we're going to get to it. I thought that the round 1, 2, and 3 as a whole could have been slightly longer.
Right.
I know potentially they still had to get some other points in, such as getting ahead and but getting some other things, and then the exposition at the end, and then obviously the part with the crisis communicator, Mr. Olsen. But I would have liked to see more of that fight. I don't know what more I would have liked, but I think I would have liked more. Potentially like 5 minutes for the first round, 7 to 10 minutes for the second round, and then a good nice 20 minutes. Which was the episode? I think it was Daredevil, where we pretty much had a very action orientated. Where I think it was like more than 3/4 to a half of it was.
Well, it must be a season 2 episode of Daredevil with the Punisher. I mean, wow, that must have used probably more blood than Titus Andronicus.
I would say so. I'd say so. I know what you mean, Chris. I think for this season, I think a lot of people may have expected that this was going to be a season of 13 episodes of Danny fighting off a bad guy, episode 1, and then another one, episode 2, and then building up through the ranks, leading to possibly Davos or possibly the Mother Crane, something like that. So to spend a bit more time on these fights once you've got an episode that are all about the fights, it does feel like we only had 25-30 minutes of the episode between these 3 fights plus the next one we're going to go on to. But yeah, I definitely could have spent a bit more time with Syed. That was really cool. To clarify again, the Vesnikov brothers were both knocked out and one tapped out. One got knocked out, one tapped out. Bride of Nine Spiders got knocked out. Syed was on the ground and Danny's being told to kill him or leave him alive. That's the choices he has. Leave him alive and walk away. And he loses, effectively, and he leaves him alive. So all 3 of these characters are not dead. Danny doesn't take any of them out. He doesn't cause any serious... they can't walk again. He didn't do a Punisher and shoot them or anything like that. So all 3 of these characters could come back in future as well. Absolutely.
And I think that probably brings us to point 3, because the reason he doesn't kill Scythe is because Madame Gao does a wonderful thing. What do I care for honor? As she's got Sabrina with a knife to her neck. Danny's kind of absolutely incredulous that she's being dishonorable in terms of breaching the terms of their agreement that they've done after the sort of the hand washing ceremony, which must be some kind of purification kind of ritual of some degree. I was wondering whether there was anything maybe specifically to undertaking a duel that would involve that kind of ceremony, but I couldn't really see anything. But I just...
It was a really cool scene, though. I did like how that scene was filmed, particularly having the 2 antagonists directly opposite each other, washing hands in the same bowl and drying themselves before they go into this long battle. That
kind of set up. Like a mutual respect or trust in the honor of the process, because you could just push his head in and drown him or something like that, or he could do that to an old defenseless lady. Which is she?
What does John know of honor?
Exactly. True to the hand. Okay, we will honor these customs to a point, but then we've been around for a long time, and the reason is that if the going gets tough, we pull out of the agreement.
Absolutely.
So Madame Gao as a whole was fantastic. I loved her performance in this, from that shambling entrance where I expected her to almost do you remember that scene in Willy Wonka, the original? Mm-hmm. Where Gene Wilder is walking out of the factory and trips and falls and then springs up. I would love to see Madame Gao do that. That would be amazing. Just like, awesome. Wait! I fooled you all. That shambling kind of lumbered, or that kind of walk she had was fantastic. The ending was good. I would have preferred if she had have just kind of, as Iron Fist kind of stepped away, she had still killed the girl. I thought that I read that what was going to happen in terms. She goes, well, you should never listen to the hand. Right. Either way, we always lie, and kind of cut the neck. And you'll see Danny go, no, and he'll know he's a failure, etc. But
I do think there's a more interesting point here, which we'll probably talk about in a second, which is that Danny doesn't feel he is a failure. So he did save the girl, and that's all he was there for.
Yes, and we can get to that kind of more. I think just it would have more emphasized the Madame Gao character for me.
I get you.
But again, this is the weird thing. I've been thinking about this now for a while since watching the episode. We don't really know Madame Gao.
Mm-hmm.
The character we built up in our head over the course of 3 seasons into this Netflix universe, we've inferred a lot based on who we think she is, what she is, and what she's done in terms of 1 or 2 of the punches. We could still be highly wrong in terms of who we... It's slightly. I know we take some wild theories, but no, I just more mean... so she mentions this master who she reports to. She also has an element of honor to her as well, because even though she and the hand break the to the death fight, by taking the daughter, Radovan's daughter, by the neck, having a knife there, she's saying that she has no honor, but she could have gone further. So they are still showing some honor by letting Danny and the daughter leave. So I find that there's actually, I again want to know more about this character. I want to know, basically, the questions for me in my head are going, actually, this may not be the evil, the one-sided evil lady that we think she potentially is. There's obviously going to be more.
I mean, she still is honourable. Absolutely, even though she dishonours the terms of the agreement, in that she gets the Iron Fist to stand down. Therefore, she's broken the agreement that they've made. But Danny doesn't want necessarily to kill Scythe, I don't think, as such, because he hasn't done it with the others. It's because his mentor is saying he must do that. But with that, he would win, and the Hand would have just lost all their operations. So I think, without a shadow of a doubt, though, she would have killed Sabrina if he had killed Scythe.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the turmoil. So, but I think it's something as well that's the richness of this character, is that she is slightly unknown. I definitely agree with you, Chris. I really want to know more about Madame Gao, but the mystical aspect of it, or the unknown more to the point, I think, or the unpredictability of her, adds just this gravitas to her, because it's almost like, physically she's this small old lady who has a cane, but she has such power, and I don't mean with what we see later on, but she controls the room to an extent, and that's what I really enjoy. But definitely, like you, Chris, want to know more about Madame Gao.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick observation just on what you were talking about earlier on, John, in terms of this setup of the Grand Duel by Madame Gao. I'm wondering if there was a little bit of kind of, I don't know, was it incredulous to her that the Iron Fist could be in New York, but what had happened to the person that she cut the head off of, her guard, the fact that the door had been punched open, the fact that he was saying this guy was using his fist in the fights, did that lead her to kind of to test this guy Danny Rand to see if he was the Iron Fist, similar to what we saw in episode 2, where Danny was being tested to prove that he's Danny Rand. Yeah, these tests were to prove actually the Iron Fist has walked away from Kunlun, has left his post, now it's open to the Hand. Yeah,
exactly. In the Immortal Iron Fist, the organization that is going for the mystical city of Kunlun is Hydra.
Right.
In the comic books, here it could be that it's the Hand, and I think that's a really high probability that that's the case. She now knows he's here in New York. We have the Veshnikov brothers also asking that question. Yeah. The true Iron Fist wouldn't be here, but she's confirmed now that he is the true Iron Fist. And I mean, she does make the point, I never thought I'd meet another Iron Fist in my lifetime, which is really, that's a nice little nod as well back to the Matt Faction, Ed Brubaker Immortal Iron Fist series. So that was really, really interesting.
Definitely.
But yes, no, as she said, she had met a previous Iron Fist before. And more importantly, she said to the fact that she's been in Kunlun.
That's right.
So this again raises a hell of a lot more questions. We are so close to a flashback episode. I can feel it in my bones.
I thought this was going to be the flashback
Yeah,
episode.
I
By
did
the
too.
title.
So did
Yeah.
I.
I just want to. I mean, I'm kind of like going, please to show Kunlun, please to show Kunlun, show Xiao Lao the Undying, please, 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 Mr. Netflix.
I don't think we'll get Xiao Lao, but I think we will get Kunlun. What I'm actually now thinking is we'll get two, or we'll definitely a minimum of two flashbacks. So we will get Danny's flashback, but she's mentioned seeing and being in Kunlun and seeing an Iron Fist before and meeting an Iron Fist. My gut's telling me we are going to see her in Kunlun somehow. I think that would be very close to the end of it.
Have you been watching ahead, Chris? Because otherwise, Derek is going to have to do a Harold Meacham on you.
Never happen. Never
Oh
happen.
no, he's going to close my hand to the door.
No, it's CCTV all around the living room.
But yes, no, I think we may actually get a secondary flashback because, as I said, they're building this character and like giving her depth, and she's becoming more than just the ever present, the big shadowy figure in the background.
Yeah.
They're making characters, so they're going to need to explain her as a character.
So does that mean that we may have gotten a previous theory of ours from Daredevil season 1 correct?
Oh wow.
Where she leaves Wilson Fisk and she says she's going away to a place very far away, thousands of miles.
Much further than China was the
Much
phrase,
further than China. So I think we could be on a roll here, guys, with our theories. So let's hope. But I do like the fact that she remembers the Kasara tree in Kunlun Square, in the main square, and that she used to train beneath it. I think is that what she said? I think she used to train beneath it at night. So yeah, she's an interesting lady.
She's a mystery.
She'd also be a warrior monk. Yeah, interesting.
I think she's fantastic.
On to our final character, our next point, Liu Kang the Thunderer. I love this. Again, I think we mentioned before about Madame Gao when she first appeared in the shadowy distance. We knew who it was, obviously, but the Netflix subtitles told us immediately who it was. The Netflix subtitles for the opening of this episode just said Thunderer as the voiceover came on. So for the entire episode, we knew the whole time who this voiceover was. Very, very different here. We have moments that Danny is actually speaking to this presence. I know you mentioned earlier on, John, that you thought of these as memories or visions of his teacher, but he's having conversations. We see Rosario Dawson's Claire Temple walk in on him and go, "Who are you talking to?" Because he's actually receiving pieces of advice all the way through, and it felt different to memories.
Oh, absolutely. It was just I didn't know what else to really describe it as in the synopsis. It's like ghostly existence. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of that. A halfway house between sort of a ghostly existence and a memory, or a Jedi Master, if you will.
Or would we call it astral projection, possibly?
Could be. I wasn't going to go there.
The AP word.
I know.
I was paying attention all the way through our Summer of Strange.
I wasn't going to go there.
Either was John.
But
it was just you at this point.
There you go.
Yeah. I think because the CGI wasn't as great as the Doctor Strange movie, I kind of was like thinking, but you're right, it's TV. It's different level.
Absolutely.
But ghostly figure. Mm-hmm. And of course in the true spirit of Yoda as well, he does kind of hint at there is another. He goes, "You must face the most cunning adversary of them all," and Danny replies with the hand, and he goes, "No."
Interesting.
So the hand is not the most cunning.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this all happens whilst he's training in the dojo, preparing to go to the Grand Duel at, was it 38 Cherry Tree? Which again is another nice reference. Obviously cherry blossoms and so on are important. Certainly in Japan, I think it's that whole moment where it becomes very popular to go and see the cherry blossoms because they are fleeting, and it links back to sort of the existence of life and all this kind of thing.
What do you think of this, Chris? The Liu Kang, the throughout the episode.
So for me on this bit, I took it as being initially I took it as Danny having a memory of a previous teaching, but as there was the scene where he was talking to himself prior to going into the fight, where I think it was Colleen who comes out and goes, "Are you talking to someone?" No, Claire comes out and says, "Are you talking to someone?" Yeah. For me, this was it started weighing on me, going, "Oh, maybe not. Maybe he is chatting directly to his teacher."
Yeah.
And then at the ending kind of sealed it for me.
Yeah.
In terms of where he turns his back, I'm like, "Oh no, he messed up." And unless this is all a kind of a trick to say that this was a memory when Danny decided to leave Kunlun, I'm of the opinion that this was some form of kind of astral projection or communication between chi warriors, etc., that they can do this once you become a master, etc. I liked the use of it in the story.
Yeah.
I liked the way it was done. I like, for new listeners, for new viewers of Iron Fist, readers of Iron Fist, they won't know who he is.
Yeah.
But for me, I didn't look at the subtitles. All I saw was the the seal he had on the side of his chest, and that's where I kind of it sprung to mind, if you want to call it that, for me. But what I did is I enjoyed the use of it from a story perspective.
Yeah.
And it kept me guessing. But what I'd like to see now is potentially him call upon his kind of teacher again, and his teacher doesn't come.
Yeah.
And then that's where he'll, like, where it's like he'll be in the final fight or one of the big fights, and he'll call to the teacher, and the teacher won't come.
Right.
And then just at the end, his teacher will kind of apparate and kind of go, "You can do this, Danny. You are the Iron Fist." And then kind of you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. And that would be a really good way of the fact that, the Immortal Iron Fist can be so powerful as well, that, the hand not only has it confirmed that he is the Immortal Iron Fist, with Madame Gao watching the whole duel, but also, they've fractured that really important connection back to Kunlun, as well as knowing that he's not there at the gates to protect it.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a nice way of someone so powerful being weakened, so that can be exploited. Because I think it's like with Doctor Strange. Sometimes it can be difficult to really get across that despite the power that they wield, that there is a weakness there. And I think that's really important with these types of characters to still show that. And I think that's why, the connection back to the PTSD with the death of his parents, and maybe now even maybe the loss of his other family, if that's what happens, that he calls on them and they don't come back, that it exacerbates all of that. And I think that's it makes him doubt, it makes him sort of move inwards. So we'll just have to see how that goes. But Li Kung the Thunderer is Iron Fist's mentor, teacher of the martial arts and the techniques. Danny Rand is one of his pupils, but so is the Steel Serpent as well.
Right.
Davos.
Yeah.
So he's an important figurehead in Danny's life in Kunlun, and he is uncompromising. He is the disciplined teacher.
Absolute kung fu movie standard. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really cool to see him. I'm hoping we don't see him like this again, where he's in every single scene with Danny, kind of talking him through everything that's going on. I don't think we will. I think, to your point, Chris, they've kind of broken that connection with him, or at least reiterated the reason why Danny may have left Kunlun. So I think that's kind of the last we'll see of him, until there may be a big moment in future when they team up, or when he needs a bit more guidance. But I don't think we'll see him for that amount of time in a future episode.
Yeah, and I think just, he wasn't explained necessarily that well
at all.
And to me, that's one of the weaknesses of this episode. In that, yeah, for ourselves, for other people that have read Iron Fist, or who may even have researched it going into watching the Netflix show, that they may have some idea, but it is actually difficult, and, you know, blink or sneeze or whatever and you'll miss it. It's not really explained in the episode who this guy actually is and what his role is. And I think there has to be something. And, I think it can be worked in and weaved into the story. And it was kind of that. And I suppose moving on to our fifth and final point, on Claire and Colleen teaming up. It's that moment at Colleen's dojo and in her apartment above it, where he says, "I am the Iron Fist," as well. And again, please tell them what that really means, and what's happening, and it's left to kind of hang there. And I think that is, I think that's a little issue with a character that isn't as well known as Daredevil. That kind of exposition is really important. I mean, Jessica Jones did it very well in getting a relatively unknown character to a broader audience and weaving in her story with Kilgraves. I'm not entirely sure they're as successful as that here. And in fact, they need to be more aware of it, I would have thought, at least within these first 6 episodes, where an audience is trying to get to know the character. But yeah, coming back to Claire and Colleen teaming up, Claire, I don't know how long she's been fired now from the hospital, but there is some kind of basic hygiene, I would think, that she would need to wash poor Radovan's chest. I mean, he was still caked and covered in blood. All I can think of is infection. So
probably don't want to move him when you've got that credit card wedged on there to keep the body actually working. You may not want to move him to change his shirt,
Yeah, but
may not have anything in his size. Colleen's a small lady and Radovan's not.
But when the septicemia finally hits through and the infection kills him off, at least we know he can breathe his last breath. There's some interesting stuff in this scene. I think we saw there's been a lot of criticism leveled at Claire within this particular scene. We talked about it before, that Claire tends to be exposition person. There's one very key piece of exposition that she doesn't share in the episode that I think has annoyed a lot of people, including myself, a little bit. Claire gets told that this is the Hand, and they have a conversation where she says to Danny, "I've had more experience battling the Hand than you have, Danny." And then she doesn't tell him that she knows a guy who has even more experience than she does at battling the Hand, which would be Matt Murdock, Daredevil. She has his number. She knows where he lives. But she doesn't share that with Danny Rand on his path to battle the Hand. That is a key piece of information that doesn't really have a reason to be held back. Yeah, it's unfortunate that there's this kind of forced separation that is kind of there. I can only presume that it is that. That, this story needs to be told separately. And I think,
again, I don't think there's a problem with that. I know from a meta reason they're going to hold that back. They don't want Danny meeting Matt Murdock before the Defenders, because they're the two main characters of 2 of the big shows. That you can't have them meeting beforehand.
Well, they could towards the end of this series.
Potentially.
I'm still holding out for a little cameo from one of them.
Possibly.
Or even 2.
Possibly, but at least mention to him that I know this person. I have a problem getting in contact with them at the moment, or something. Mention
Absolutely.
It's a big deal that she's fought alongside another person in Hell's Kitchen versus the Hand. She didn't just get dragged into it because she happened to work in a hospital. She got dragged into it because of Daredevil.
Yeah.
So even just referencing the guy, did you see the newspapers about this guy since he got back from Kunlun, the Daredevil of Hell's Kitchen? I know that guy, and now you're another one, it seems like they've gone out of their way to not mention him so that they don't mess up the continuity for Defenders in the future. That's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's forced separation for the sake of Defenders, or the Defenders. I think that's what they are. I unfortunately agree with a lot of the negative criticism being parsed at this point as well, in terms of, like, she could have said, "Look, let me call this guy I know," and you could have had Danny being so young, so fresh, going, I don't need anyone. I'll handle this.
Perhaps.
This is my job. That's how I felt it should have gone. Because you could then, it plays into Danny being, I am the one to face against the hand.
Yeah.
It's my job.
And I think that's effectively what he does, without knowing that there is another person like him out there that's fought against him.
Exactly.
He does it without knowing it's the kind of problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. But of course, Claire does give us a great little sweet Christmas moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was very cool. Yeah, very cool. Nice little reference to Luke Cage.
She's been getting too much coffee. She's
Absolutely.
been having too much coffee.
Yeah.
Not a huge amount, since poor little Luke is all locked up tight.
Well, conjugal visits, perhaps.
Maybe.
Maybe conjugal visits with coffee.
Aye.
There you go. Yeah, so taking it actually on towards this part, I really enjoyed this hospital scene element of Colleen and Claire kind of getting together, sorting out. Claire is becoming very intuitive to the ways of nefarious people. So the way, but also brings me to a great point. Excuse me, I sound like a blow my own trumpet. But what I'm trying to say is, when she figures out that her once friend helped the two orderlies put him in an OR, or bring him. So I'm now questioning. Oh, was her once friend now the lady who tried to get rid of her?
Interesting.
Was she aware of that these two orderlies weren't actually taking, because she walked in with them?
Yeah, well, let's take that, because I did like this. I like that Claire's actual story from the hospital is continuing from Daredevil season 2 into this show.
Yeah, no, that was cool.
It's a great choice. So the story that came about was that they hand attacked the hospital. Her friend was murdered, and it was all covered up by the hospital administration for reasons that Claire didn't agree with. So she was going to challenge them, and then she eventually was told, just leave the job or you're fired, basically. You can't keep the job because you don't agree with what the administration is doing. So, yeah, Chris, to your point, it is entirely possible that the hospital administrator is now involved in that whole cover-up scam, or involved in the hands control of the hospital, or in control of situations in New York, regardless of whether it's in a hospital or not. Somebody is covering them up so the populace of New York don't know about them.
Yeah, I loved the move of Colleen Wing actually on one of the orderlies that comes to kind of stop them from chasing after Radovan, who's on the gurney, where it's almost like she does a 360 of his arm in its socket, or the wrist, or whatever.
Yeah.
And just that Claire goes, you make it look easy, and Carlene's like response is, it was easy. He wasn't a particularly good thug. Really cool little moment that I thought, the interchange between Claire and Colleen. But obviously it's all a red herring, and he presumably is being kidnapped back to Madame Gao or her master.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the top 5 points on probably our longest running episode of the season so far. Sorry.
Well, it was action packed.
Oh, it was huge, and we did go through each round. So we have ultimately kind of got 8 points
We
here.
did. I do like that. That does happen occasionally. Any very tiny notes about the episode before we crack on?
Yeah, I've got a few quick ones. We had our obligatory sideways mention of the Avengers with the Incredible Green Guy.
That's right.
If you don't know who the Incredible Green Guy is, I'm sorry. Go watch the Avengers, and then it will probably become pretty obvious. It is Captain America, of course. He is our Incredible Green Guy.
I was wondering about this because the actual mention of it is that Danny's video on YouTube has gotten more hits than the Incredible Green Guy. That's not possible, isn't it? Do you think people are actually going to watch a video of a corporate scam on YouTube more than they'd watch the Incredible Hulk taking the Shatari out of the sky over New York City over and over and over again? I'd watch that thing 1,000,000 times. That would not come off.
We have the Harlem, we have South Africa and Cape Town, where he destroys Cape. There's many elements. But no, apparently corporate scandal is...
I know.
In the MCU, in the Netflix MCU version of the world, the corporate scandal would have more views on YouTube. Interesting thinking there.
We thinks not.
And then to kind of close off my notes point, we have obviously the episode name, which we're trying to kind of pull together usually. So this episode was Immortal Emerges From Cave. Again, I can find nothing. So what I'm leaning towards, thankfully, one of our listeners has got in contact through the Facebook group, Michael Booth, and he goes, at least the connection with the name to this episode is obvious. The Immortal Iron Fist has been tested by Gao.
Yeah.
So there we are. Thank you, Michael Booth. We appreciate that. Would pretty much, yes, we agree, it has to be it. But again, if anyone is a practicing Shaolin Kung Fu warrior or actually wants to help us and explain some of these moves, please let us know. I'm to the point that if I have to go to episode 13 without knowing them, I'm going to find one in Dublin, Ireland, and just ask him to YouTube them for me.
I love it.
You could ask him to astral project to you.
That could work too. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure the cost of astral projection right now with a Shaolin warrior monk in Dublin, Ireland, in euro, the conversion rate is just too high when you go to the bed and back. Like, you've got long distance astral projection. I'm pretty sure that racks up over local calls. So
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, the mobiles haven't got a tariff for that yet.
Not yet.
Maybe we'll even need to change the locks in case we block people that are astral projecting into our homes. Is there a way to block them out? Does that get covered in insurance or what?
I'm pretty sure in the MCU insurance there is probably going to be Hulk damage, astral projection, robbery. The premium on superhero insurance is probably quite high. I'm pretty sure someone has done a thesis on that somewhere.
Possibly.
I'm really hoping they have. If not, I would love for someone who's one of our listeners in college right now to do that.
Well, that's it. It'll just build on Act of God clause, and it'll be Act of Superhero clause.
Well, see, you do have Act of Thunder God, then you have Act of War God. Yeah, there's a lot of gods there. All
right, on that note, I think it's time to get into the defends for this episode. Chris, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I do. I'm not going to lie. Yes, I defend this episode of Iron Fist, and the action was great. The cinematography, the overall look and feel, the writing. This was, for me, one of the best episodes of the first 6. This is a slow burn TV show that is building towards where I want it, with this episode being the pinnacle. The fights were fantastic, as I said. The writing, fantastic. I still have some issues in terms of how many questions it's leaving for me, but as a whole, I defend this.
Excellent.
So that leaves me with John. Do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
Oh, I do. This is my favourite so far. This episode, and I would give this 4 Madame Gaos out of 5. I'd love to actually give it a little more, but certainly I think there's still a few weaknesses that came through here that I think are a little bit of an issue, but I absolutely thought Madame Gao in this and her interplay with the Iron Fist was absolutely excellent.
And you don't want to give it 4.5 Madame Gaos either.
No, but I reckon she could actually split herself into and still operate quite well. I think... I thought she's excellent. I think she brings a presence, a gravitas to the scenes in this episode that really just elevate those scenes. As I say, watching over each of the fights, it was great to see all these challengers, in particular seeing Scythe and seeing the Bride of the Nine Spiders. Absolutely fantastic. Really getting into the heart and soul of Iron Fist's comic book character and origins and bringing that to the screen, seeing Li Kung the Thunderer as his mentor as well. That was excellent. And I think, again, Ward Meacham's deterioration, I just thought that was played pitch perfectly. And so I really, really enjoyed this episode. Looking forward to episode 7, I believe it might be a crazy episode.
Interesting.
But Derek, on that crazy notion, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I definitely defend this episode of Iron Fist. Yeah, much like you guys, I think we're in this season, we're actually quite closely aligned in our thoughts about the episodes. We're not usually. We do have some episodes that some of us like and some of us don't like in each of the other shows. This is pretty much the best episode of the season so far.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it to the RZA's direction. No criticism of Scott Book, but I think the RZA had a vision for this show, and he was trying to condense it into one episode. He's really pulled out all the stops to create a kung fu TV show for our generation, you know. It feels like he was trying to do so much with the limited budget that you get for one episode of a show. There's some shots in here that came directly from 70s TV shows. There's music cues. There's specific moments. There's a quick moment that I find difficult to describe, but it's a moment where just after Danny gets powered and is looking directly at the Bride of Nine Spiders, it's a scene that is a small screen, low budget version of something that's used in Kill Bill when the bride sees each of her victims. And it's done a very low budget. It's just done as a shaky cam. Those kind of touches are only done by someone who is passionate and loves this kind of project. It feels like the RZA is the right person to do this show. And I'd love to see him get an opportunity potentially to do another episode later on, or maybe do season 2 of Iron Fist and be a showrunner on that.
Completely. I do think the ethos of this episode, dare I say it, should have been in the opening episode.
Yeah.
I think at the time, when we did our review podcast on episode 1, I think I kind of just went, oh, F it. You know, they should have gone full Kunlun, looked at the mystical city in that episode, just to really get the feel and ethos of this whole world that Danny lives on, in terms of Kunlun, juxtaposed with New York. And I think that kind of feeling and ethos came through in this episode, and I think that probably should have been there for episode 1.
I think that kind of brings it on to kind of a big point about episode 6. This is the end of our screeners. This is the end of the episodes that we received from Netflix before the show was released on the 17th of March. The same as all the critics that did the previews. So, John, you've kind of given a little bit of a thought there on your concept of episode 1 to 6 overall. And I do feel there's kind of a step change in this episode to the kind of show I want to see. I know there's a huge amount of setup that you have to do and a huge amount of universe building you have to do when you set up a new cast of characters every time. This has been a slower build-up than the other shows, but now that we're right here on episode 6, I can't wait to get to episode 7. I'm really looking forward to episode 7. And it feels like if this is all you've seen of the show, you definitely make your decision right now whether you want to step on and continue into the show or not. It does feel like one of those jumping off points on the show. Is this your show or not? Is what you would decide by episode 6. This is definitely a show I want to see more of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, I would say, look, this is a fan podcast, and plus I think our starting point is always to be positive. Even when we do say and point out the negatives, I think we could still also draw out positives from the episode. I think on that basis, I would say my own opinion is that Iron Fist, I think, has been judged harshly by the critics. But to be fair to them, I think that they are, given these 6 episodes, they're reviewing it really quickly. And I actually think a better measure probably of the show from the reviewer's standpoint is where they go through each episode. So, they're trying to give an overview of 13 episodes from 6. Yeah. That must be a pretty difficult job to do, especially when you've got so many other reviews to do, and maybe you watch the first one and you go, that didn't chime with me. Like, to an extent, it didn't with us. So, I mean, I can understand where they're coming from, but I wonder whether it's just the volume of reviews maybe that reviewers have to do these days.
Obviously, that's their opinions.
Exactly.
There are people that absolutely hate this show. There are previewers that watched all 6 episodes and absolutely don't understand where Marvel are going. I'm lucky I'm not in the camp. But I totally agree with you, John. They should follow our format and just review the episodes individually and have listeners like our wonderful listeners joining us for all 13 episodes.
I suppose what I meant by that is obviously outlets are going to review each episode of the show as they come along and give more time to each episode. But again, with Luke Cage, they had 7 episodes, and by the end of that, there was high praise indeed, and rightly so. But the second half of that season didn't chime with a lot of people as well. And yet, I suppose the head of steam was built up from those initial reviews. And maybe that even made that switch in some people's minds where they just maybe didn't get the second half of Luke Cage as a season, because it was so, it contrasted, with the first half in a sense. And I mean, we don't know yet, but maybe this is the jumping off point for Iron Fist. It will build and build and build and be fantastic and get the high praise like Luke Cage did for the first 7. It is interesting that there are only 6 episodes in the screeners as opposed to 7 that we got for Luke Cage, and obviously for Daredevil season 2 as well. So, I mean, I wonder whether that's got anything to do with it. That, you know, I have heard that episode 7 goes kind of crazy, so be interesting.
Chris, what's your thoughts?
So in my bit, I guys, to be brutally honest, and I think this is, I kind of alluded to a few of these facts. This being a fan podcast, we are slightly more. No, it's by fans about something we enjoy. I can see where the average viewer who has no background in this, who's potentially watched Daredevil, this is a very different show.
Yeah.
This is a kung fu show, and it's a slow burner. This is potentially the best episode so far of the 6 episodes. And what I think the issue there is, where in previous episodes, in previous series of Daredevil, of Luke Cage, of Jessica Jones, if they did not open strong in the first episode, the second to third it was a quicker pickup, a quicker hook. As much as they're paying service to us, and I think they've done that job well, and they've been very faithful to the comic book origins and some of the comic book stories, they forgot that they also need to be there for someone who isn't a comic book fan. Who has no understanding of who the Thunderer is, and this guy, this monk, just talking to him. There's some expositions that they go into over detail, and there's some where they just don't detail enough. Truthfully, I can kind of understand where some of the other reviewers have come from. Does it warrant the level of scorn, of negative press that it has received to date regarding the quality? No. I think, yes, this is a slow show. It's getting better. I think it's going to continue to get better. There is some strong writers. There's some strong directorial people there. They missed a few beats, yes. But again, if you add up the amount of hours, the amount of time that Netflix have put in, this will be the 5th season of 13-hour shows. That's more than any MCU film combined, I think, nearly. Yeah. When you add it all together. They are building a secondary world. They are building something that not only appeals to us as fans of comic books and as fans of each of these characters, but also they are trying to bring in new fans. So, yes, it takes time.
And differently to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which would have a similar volume of episodes and number of seasons, they're also trying to build up each individual show to have its own individual audience as well, not just one big universe of shows. So yeah, doing a very different tack.
And I think, just to close it out, I've had 2 friends tell me that Iron Fist is terrible. And I went, have you watched it? They went, no, I just read online. And I was like, but why would you not check it out? You like Daredevil, you like Luke Cage. Oh yeah, but like everyone's saying it's terrible. I'm like, no, there's not everyone is saying it's terrible. Yeah. And I think my one request to all of our listeners out there is, if you actually hear someone say that the show is terrible, and we'll go, actually, have you watched it? Give it a try. Like, just give it the chance that it deserves, as any Netflix show. In a world where Netflix, you can just turn it off and go on something else easily. I can see where potentially people have dropped out on this. So my request is, go forth, our Iron Fist listeners, our Daredevil listeners, our Luke Cage and Jessica Jones listeners, and spread the word that this show is actually not bad.
Yeah.
Trust it. Go with your gut and have a watch.
Aye.
And on that note, Derek.
Absolutely. Got a little bit of feedback in from Facebook on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast. Kale Hensley says, I just started episode 6 and just remembered this dude is British and he doesn't have the Dr. House, Doctor Strange or Legion British American voice. So, good on him. Well, that's pretty positive.
Yeah. To be fair, Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange accent was actually perhaps one of the best we've seen in a while. And the Doctor House one, well, he never... Yeah, okay, I'll give him that one. But the Legion, I didn't even know the actor was British.
Really?
No, I didn't
actually thought he was American. So I'll give him House. I'll argue Strange. And thank you for informing me about Legion.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know about Legion either, that he was British.
Not only is he British, his biggest role is on what TV show, gentlemen? Little pop quiz there. What TV show could possibly be the biggest role?
The Bill.
No.
Coronation
EastEnders.
Street.
Think even more British than that.
Keeping Up Appearances.
Only Fools and Horses.
What age do you think the lead actor in Legion is?
Keeping Up at Last of the Summer Wine.
Oh, no. Here, this is a deep cut for all our listeners. There is a show called Allo. And it is probably one of the worst stereotypical French, old 70s British, 70s, 80s British.
Wow, no.
It is a cultural nadir, I think you find.
It's so good.
All right, one final tip since we are in feedback. A section of an episode of this show was in Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3.
Oh, no, Downton Abbey.
Yes.
Oh,
He
God.
was a major character in Downton Abbey for many seasons.
Well, that's why I don't know him, because Downton Abbey, it's dreadful. It makes me cringe, Downton Abbey. And it's just pure false history. It's despicable.
But you would watch a Downton Abbey with Tony Stark and a few others. That would be interesting.
If he used his bloody armor to fire all those missiles like he did in the first Iron Man film, and then that would be pretty awesome, actually.
Well, Downton Abbey was good enough for Happy in Iron Man 3, so there you go.
Yeah. Not convinced.
On that note, thank you so much for all of your feedback on this episode. If you want to send us feedback, just email us over at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Do what all the rest of the feedbackers did and come to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/defenderstvpodcast or record a voicemail over at defenderstvpodcast.com by pressing the voicemail button.
And remember, for all voicemails submitted, you will be entered into a prize draw where there will be some fast and furious and fruity prizes to be had from the Marvel Universe.
From the Marvel Universe, that's not a tip-off that this is connected to the Vin Diesel movies at all. It's not.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Fast and Furious.
It could be Groot.
Yeah.
Maybe. We are not giving anybody Groot.
No. Actually, Fast and Furious would be really good in one. What was the Del Boys van?
All right. Time to wind this up, boys. That's it. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Defenders TV Podcast. We'll be back again next Tuesday with a review of episode 7 of Iron Fist, Felling Tree with Roots. Can't wait to get on to that episode.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you on Tuesday the 4th of April.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And as always, we'll be with you next time. Bye.